Hello, everyone. It's June the 3rd, Wednesday. I've got to start off again with something that's surely not pleasant, but we have our 78th death in West Virginia, a female in Berkeley County. I don't know how to do it other than the fact to just tell everyone in our great state that we've lost 78 great West Virginians. We've lost 78 West Virginians for the most part that are elderly. We have lost some younger people that has been tragic beyond belief, but losing anyone is tragic. And our nation, has lost probably approaching 105,000. In fact, it may even be more than that. And but I know it's well in excess of 100,000 people. This thing has surely not been just nothing. It's been a killer. It's still with us. I caution everyone, especially the elderly, to be really smart, protect yourself, especially if you have any kind of chronic heart or lung or any type of issue. This thing can come on quickly and it can be very bad. I ask our young people to realize that, for you, for the most part, you could actually be a transmitter or a carrier of this and everything because your symptoms may be minimal, if even not even noticeable. And so be careful. And I ask all West Virginians to pray for this beautiful lady that we lost and her family in Berkeley County and all of her loved ones, and know that these people will not be forgotten. And there's no way on earth that I'm going to allow these people, these great West Virginians, to become a statistic. So please keep them in your thoughts and your prayers. This is week 6 of our West Virginia Strong, the comeback reopening plan. We're trying to ease back into the reopening as to where we crawled before we ran. We have done that. We have watched our numbers, night and day. I don't know that there's any difference anymore between the night and the day, but we had one spike up. That spike up was just exactly what we were looking for. It was at Huttonsville primarily. We've had people that have run to the fire, and I'm going to give you a report on that in just a second. But on Friday, June the 5th, we'll be opening our movie theaters and our casinos, and as we go further, I'm going to give you some additional openings that are going to happen and everything, and we're going to continue to just do what West Virginia has done so magnificently, and that is we're going to continue to be smart, and we're going to continue to watch and be careful and be cautious, and as we continue to go forward, we're going to watch these numbers, and we're going to watch the numbers, like I said, night and day, and as the numbers move, we're going to know by science and by math where to run to the fires, and that's what we're going to do. In Huttonsville, the test, I'm going to read this to you. The testing in our correctional facilities that I directed for the rest of the correctional inmates and staff is underway, and that's at additional facilities through beyond Huttonsville. It began yesterday morning at 5 facilities in the northern and eastern panhandles, 3 regional jails, 2 prisons, and 2 juvenile centers. More than 1,000 inmates and juveniles were tested. More than 500 employees were tested. The corrections people, and are testing the staff as well as all the other employees. They are tracking to complete the northern panhandle today with 2 additional facilities. Corrections is scheduled to test all facilities statewide by June the 12th. And as a result, as the results are available, they'll be posted on my website. We already have really good news about Huttonsville. If I could jump back to Huttonsville. 7 of the 8 positive employees at Huttonsville have recovered. 1 of the 7 is back at work. 21 of the positive inmates have recovered. And so everybody, everything thus far from the Huttonsville spike that we got in such a dramatic way and everything is moving in the direction that we want it to move. We want all these people to recover and, our people to be back at work and our inmates to be back in good health. And so we're, everyone's monitoring it, and I salute all the people from the local health departments to everyone, that has participated in making this what we hope and pray will be good news and good news to all of us. And like I said, we are on the move to test all of our correctional facilities. We should finish the Panhandle, I think it said, tomorrow, and let me see what. No, we should complete the Panhandle today, and and we're continuing to move on and to complete all the other testing by June the 12th. It's good work by lots of people. Now, if I could just go through some announcements. We will be reopening our private and our state park campgrounds to out-of-state guests beginning on on June the 10th. That's our lodges and everything on June the 10th. We will impose a 7-day limit on, our out-of-state guests that they cannot stay in our parks in excess of 7 days. We surely don't want people coming here from out of state and just, taking up some level of permanency, in our state parks and whatever. That's not what we're looking for right now. The other thing I want to announce, we had this question come from Berkeley County, but, we had individuals that own property, and they want to come to their, campsite or whatever it may be. Well, they own the property, for crying out loud, they're absolutely welcome, and there's not been a restriction in regard for them to come. As far as free testing and that restriction, what I was referring to there is someone from out of state owns property here. Well, for crying out loud, they have every right to come here and everything, and so naturally, if they're sick or they're feeling bad or whatever like that, we don't want them here. But at the same time, they have a right to come. Okay, our free testing in the counties of McDowell, Ojai, and Harrison County on Friday and Saturday are up and going and ready to have the people come for their tests and everything. We encourage the minorities and anybody that's feeling bad or the vulnerable people to come. But we encourage anybody that's got any kind of level of anxiety, no matter how they're feeling, please come and be tested. What I am telling you, though, is we are adding, 3 other counties, and the testing for these 3 counties will begin on June the 13th, and that is Grant, Hampshire, and Hardy counties. So look, for those residents to come and take advantage of this situation. It is a painless test. It absolutely will. You'll be in and out of there in 12 seconds. So just go get tested. What can it hurt? What in the world can it hurt? It may very well save your life or a loved one's life and everything. Run by there and get tested, and it'll tickle your nose a little bit, and maybe that'll make you sneeze. But other than that, it is absolutely painless. So please take advantage of this. I don't know if you got it on our website, but I, again, encourage all the cities and all the counties to apply for this CARES money. We're sitting here on this money and wanting to send it to you. That's all there is to it. We now have processed 18 applications. We have absolutely got to have our cities and our counties apply. The original checks may be very small, but at least they're checks. I mean, for crying out loud, get the applications in and we'll be sending the money back out. You know, I remind everybody again about the census. You got to get counted. It's like beating a horse and everything. Or beating rather a dead horse. But I just want you to know that, come on now, we got to get everybody counted on this census. And Scott Adkins, who's done a magnificent job over at Workforce, is with us today, and he's going to give us an update later on. I only have one other thing, and this project has been in the wings for who knows, maybe even decades. I don't know exactly, but I've heard about it and heard about it and heard about it. It's the Oakwood Road project right here in Kanawha County. And like I said, this gives me tremendous pleasure. But today I am announcing that I have approved the award of the contract for the Oakwood Intersection Improvement Project on US 119 in Kanawha County, and the work will begin soon. It's great work by our highway and transportation departments and everything, but let me just read just a little bit more about this. The low bidder is Mountaineer Contractors Incorporated from Kingwood, West Virginia, with a bid of $5,852,000. Now get this. This project utilizes a restricted crossing U-turn that will improve safety and decrease traffic light waits. When the DOT brought me the original design, it was estimated to cost $30 million. I asked them to take a harder look at the project, and they re-engineered it using cutting-edge ideas to realize cost savings, and we saved $25 million on a $30 million proposed project. And this is another example of the great work the DOT is doing. And everywhere you look in the months to come across this state, you'll see us fixing potholes and pulling ditches and doing additional paving and everything. And it'll be going on in all 55 counties. It started a little late this year because of all the rain. We just had rain upon rain upon rain upon rain. But you'll see our great DOT workers out there, and they'll be everywhere. And you'll probably see a lot more orange cones and everything. And so I think all that's really good. It tickles me to death to see them. I know the waits are a little inconvenient from time to time, but the end result is awfully good. And this Oakwood Road project, I am tickled to death because it came in at a fraction of what they thought it was going to be. And again, that great work on the re-engineering and everything is making it a reality, and making it a reality that's way overdue. So it's a good project right here in Kanawha County, and that's really good. Okay, the other thing is just run to these charts real quick and give you an update on the numbers. Like I said, we lost another individual, and that's 78 too many. I hate it so badly, it's unbelievable, but I've got to say, West Virginia, you've done amazingly well. If we could look at our recovered cases, the top lines, if you'll see, the bottom line is still tilting downward. The top line is still moving in the way we want it to move. We got 1,381 now cases that have recovered, and we got 612 that we're working that are active, and all that's moving just the way we want it to move. If you'll go down one line below that, you'll see that spike that we were talking about, where we jumped up at 7.05%. You remember we wanted to stay below 3. That was the big thing. We got to stay below 3 on the cumulative, on the bottom one, below 3. That's where we want to be and everything. Well, that spike at 7%, that's way past. But you see, that is exactly what we wanted to see by the math. We didn't want to just, lick our thumb and hold it up in the air and figure out which way the wind's blowing. We wanted some kind of scientific math to be able to lead us and let that lead us to where we needed to charge. And so that was, That's exactly what happened with Huttonsville, and look what's happened after that. Yesterday, I think I reported we were at .02, which was, or rather, we were at .2, which was like 0.5%, which was the best day ever. Today we're at 1.32. The day prior to that .2 was 1.23. All that's great. That's just great, great, great. The cumulative percent of positive cases, remember when it was like 1.91 or 1.92? And then all of a sudden with Huttonsville and everything, we rose back up all the way to like 2.13. Well, that surely is not what we wanted. But now we've gone down and down and down, and now we're at 2.00 flat, and that's really good, really good. We're still trending as a state, from the standpoint of, our positives, versus the number of tests compared to our neighbors. We're off the chart good there. As far as our total testing, we still pace at a pace greater than the U.S. and significantly greater than all of our neighbors. So all I would say to you is just this: as we continue to open, please, West Virginians, please remember, if you're an elderly person or if you're going out into to a building to shop or something like that, think really hard. You ought to be wearing your mask and everything. And, it's a little inconvenience, but for crying out loud, what is that? It's on a scale of where we're at, for a few more months until that vaccine gets here for all of us and everything, just try to be safe and just try to really be smart, West Virginia, because you've already done it. Just keep the miracle happening, and there'll be more and more and more good, come our way. And please keep all those in your thoughts and your prayers that we've lost. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor. Let's first go to Scott Adkins, the Acting Commissioner of Workforce, West Virginia.
Oh, thanks, Jordan, and good morning. Just wanted to update you about some of the unemployment numbers so far. The past 10 weeks, Workforce has received 250,000 unemployment claims. And just to put that in perspective, all of 2019, we took 46,862. And so in the past 10 weeks, we've taken 5 times more claims than we did the entire year of 2019. Workforce has paid out more than $701 million in unemployment benefits so far over the past 10 weeks. There's about 5% of that 250,000 claims I mentioned earlier that have issues that we're having to work through. Those issues must be resolved before we can issue payment. And so I know there's some folks still in the system that were working on those claims, and I can assure you that the staff here at Workforce and our partners are working very hard and diligently to resolve all those issues. Some of the issues have to be formally adjudicated, and unfortunately, the adjudication process can take several weeks. And so I would ask you, if you're in that group of folks that those claims have to be adjudicated, it's going to take several weeks to do that because of due process and some other issues with the law. One thing that I want to mention to the folks today, because of the historic surge in unemployment claims, we're seeing a lot more fraud happening with unemployment. To give you an idea, we've received several hundred claims for folks who actually didn't file claims. And so people are stealing other folks' identities and filing claims in their name. I would encourage you that if you receive a letter from Workforce stating that your claim has been approved, but you didn't file for a claim, that you contact us immediately. We're working with state and federal law enforcement agencies to identify and prosecute those bad actors. We've also identified several fraudulent IP addresses from across the country and some even outside the United States that are attempting to file claims here in West Virginia. Additional initiatives have been implemented. And so you may see as you go through the PUA system or the regular UI system, there's some other safeguards that we put in place. They're going to ask for additional information as you file that claim or you update those weekly certifications. Be patient with us. We're going to get through that. If you suspect fraud, either with your name or maybe a neighbor or somebody you work with. We do have an 800 number. I would encourage you to call. It's 1-800-379-1032 and select option 6. Again, to report fraud, it's 1-800-379-1032. You can also find that number on our webpage at workforcewv.org. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll go to Major General Hoyer with the West Virginia National Guard.
Good morning. A couple of items to highlight today. The National Guard over the next couple of days will be conducting what we call tabletop exercise to prepare for other events that we might have to respond to on behalf of the citizens, such as a flood or some type of hurricane response that would cause challenges in our area. In addition to today and tomorrow, we'll be supporting Kanawha and Hampshire 911 centers with some baseline environmental testing and sanitization efforts to better serve those 911 centers. And then I'd like to highlight a couple of things. Jordan, if you could please put up the document if you have that.
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll push out to the governor's website and to the National Guard website a document that's circulating that uses a National Guard watermark on the back of it and talks about FEMA calling out National Guard troops and implementing the Stafford Act. Just want to make sure that folks, particularly in the Eastern Panhandle, who've notified us that they've received this document, that is not an accurate document. It's not accurate in that FEMA is not responsible party for calling out the National Guard. They're using a National Guard watermark inappropriately and talking about things that just are not accurate related to the Stafford Act. It also allows me to highlight that in addition to individuals within our country that do this, Russia and China are actively and aggressively attempting to put out false narratives and information on social media sites. So I ask all West Virginians to pay attention. If you have questions, contact your local law enforcement officer, local elected officials, or look to the governor's website or the National Guard website for accurate information. And I want to, in regard to that and to the work that West Virginians are doing related to mitigation of the coronavirus, the efforts that you've done, that the governor and Dr. Marsh in particular have highlighted over the last number of days, on behalf of the National Guard and our counterparts in state government and law enforcement, first responders, and healthcare workers, thank you for the continued efforts you do to mitigate the spread of the virus. And thank you for the great work that West Virginians are doing in this unfortunate circumstance related to the unfortunate incident that occurred in Minnesota, and the way you are conducting yourselves as West Virginians and not falling prey to false narratives and things of that nature, and continuing to express yourselves in the appropriate manner. So again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for the great work, West Virginia.
Thank you, General. And that document is now on the screen. And we'll make that available on the governor's website as well. Dr. Clay Marsh, our coronavirus czar, and Secretary Bill Crouch and Dr. Kathy Slimp from the West Virginia DHHR are also joining us today and are available for questions. Once again, we're holding today's briefing with media members joining us virtually to practice good social distancing. The first questioner we have today is Steve Adams with Ogden Newspapers.
Yes, Steve Adams of Ogden Newspapers here. Question in regards to the applications for cities and counties for CARES Act funding. I understand this came out of the Parkersburg City Council meeting yesterday evening, but I understand that an application that they had filed for some of this funding had been rejected. So I was wondering, do we know specifically why? And also, do we know how many applications? I know you've mentioned how many applications have been turned in. Do we know how many applications from other cities and counties have been rejected for CARES Act funding? Thank you.
Stephen, I don't have the people here to answer those questions, dead on the money, but I've had lots and lots of discussions with them. So let me at least make a run at it as best I can. first and foremost, there are very strict guidelines, very strict, that in regard to these first applications. The other thing is, if they're not getting a tremendous amount of feedback with people on the phone that are talking back and forth to them as their applications come in, that's a problem. I don't think that's the case, but that's a problem, and from the standpoint that, I think Mayor Joyce, we have talked directly to, and we're continuing to do so. I think we need more documentation and everything to be able to process it, and we'll continue to just do exactly that. We want them to have the money more than you can imagine, but we've got to follow the guidelines that we have been given us from the feds and everything. And absolutely, as we go forward and everything, if the cities and the counties will work with us from the standpoint, and I know they will, and everything, if they'll work with us, and if they're frustrated and everything, call our office right here, and let us try to nudge them along, or maybe do a whole lot more than nudging, from the standpoint of getting, people got to get on the phone, communicate. We've got to get the documentation, and we get the documentation, and we can fit it into, the square hole. The square peg into a round hole, and make it fit within the guidelines. The money goes right out.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next, we'll go to Amanda Barron with WSAZ.
Hi, everybody. Amanda Barron with WSAZ. I wanted to talk about just when it comes to small businesses, restaurants, and other establishments, about letting full capacity in. As we see different protests pop up, and we know that those are large groups. Some people have on masks, some don't. I just wondered what your thoughts are seeing that, and then kind of translating some of those crowds to the businesses that so desperately need to see crowds at their establishments. Thanks.
Okay, Amanda, we're well aware of the fact, from the standpoint of the crowds in regard to the protesters and how that fits into the 25 mold, and when we really feel like we need now to start expanding the 25 mold and everything, and to be perfectly honest, we're going to do a great amount more, of work in regard to that, in later today, and the only thing, Amanda, it seems like when you call, it's always this, but I think the president's on the line right now, and I'm going to have to pass over to Clay and let Clay talk a little bit about this and the indoor-outdoor stuff, and I'll catch this, and I'll call you, and then I'll come back right back.
Well, thanks, Governor, and thank you, Amanda. I think that as you rightly point out, there's a delicate balancing act that we're all trying to navigate, sometimes more successfully and sometimes less successfully. As we look at protests around the country where people are using their voices and First Amendment rights to peacefully protest the death of George Floyd and others, then we would really heavily encourage not only the use of masks, but the benefit of trying to distance and move from people in the crowd so that you don't end up with static interface. Remember, we talked yesterday about the perspective of folks in Japan that have been very successful at navigating the spread and the number of deaths from COVID. A country of 127 million people have had less than 1,000 deaths from COVID so far, and they focus on close contacts, they focused on closed environments, and they focus on crowds. So they believe, and I think that their record proves them at least having some credible insights, that we really do want to try to maintain some distance if we can. Certainly in situations like the peaceful protests, that can be difficult, but we also want to make sure that we are varying our continued exposure to single people with those close contacts unless we live with them. And certainly as we look at crowds, we want to make sure that as people do, demonstrate peacefully, that they're also cognizant that this is a perfect situation to augment the spread of the COVID virus. And so with our restaurants and with our businesses, we want to make sure as much as possible and advise the governor to be able to, create the right environments for them to be able to not just survive, but to thrive. Yet at the same time, of course, the concern is that the closer we come together and the more contact we make in a closed environment, the more likely this virus can spread. And the speed of spread is still what we're worried about. So there's no perfect solutions. Certainly, as we are following very closely the progress and the prevalence and the incidence of COVID infection around the state of West Virginia, and we start to look at areas that are much more vulnerable, whether it's because of their location, as we've talked about before, in the Eastern Panhandle, or other sort of juxtapositions close to other states that have more activity, the Northern Panhandle, certainly Ohio River Valley, then we will continue to try to test in those areas to be able to gain an insight over what the ambient circumstances are, because we know that mostly the spread into a community will not just be given the interface in, say, a restaurant or a meal, but really be much more related to the prevalence and the incidence of COVID in that community, because people carry that back and forth. And so as we go forward, certainly we hope to be able to, loosen up some of these restrictions. But as we've said before, these may not be always in the whole state, because now instead of looking at the state as one single whole, we're looking at the state as 55 integrated parts. And so I think that what you can anticipate, Amanda, is that we will continue to advise the governor, and the governor will finally make the decisions that he feels is right for the state. But we may advise not necessarily always on a whole state perspective. And although we haven't really done that, that is certainly an important tool that we all have, working closely with the Bureau of Public Health and the local health departments and the county health officers and the elected officials in these areas to try to make sure we're doing the right thing for all citizens in West Virginia. So thank you.
Okay, everyone. We can go on to another question if you want. I just had to jump off. It was the president, and I'll talk to you about that in just a few minutes. But nevertheless, I wasn't able to hear what Dr. Marsh was saying. But the only thing I would add to it, as far as I am totally aware of the situation as far as the economics in our restaurants, to be able to, handle our restaurants at 50% capacities. I've been through it. I mean, I understand it. I've got it. And what we're going to try to do, we're going to meet again today. We'll consult with all the experts, especially the medical field and everything, from the standpoint of broadening those horizons just a little bit and making it just a little easier from the standpoint of the size of the groupings or the size of the capacities or whatever, but we're working it, and we'll be working it more this afternoon.
All right, our next questioner is Sean Stinson with the Pendleton Times.
Yes, Sean Stinson with the Pendleton Times. I understand that you offered the guidance on the state and private campgrounds earlier today. However, I do have a question as to why was there a delay in allowing those facilities to welcome the out-of-state visitors, because about a mile away from a private facility here in Pendleton County at Seneca Shadows, that federal campground has been allowing out-of-state visitors to their facility for a few weeks. And Governor, I was just curious as to why there was a delay in allowing those private and state campgrounds to have those out-of-state visitors.
Well, the answer is really simple and really straightforward, and it's just this: there's no perfect fit. And I understand from the standpoint of the federal campgrounds and versus our private campgrounds and our state campgrounds and I understand the conflict that we got into, but we wanted to see the numbers after Memorial Day weekend, and we wanted to see numbers, to be able to see if we were still trending the right way. Just opening the floodgates to out of state, people to come to our campgrounds and lodges and all was not the right move. And we absolutely wanted to do that as gradually as we possibly can. I know, I get, the economics of the whole thing, but now we're trying to do exactly what you're saying to do, and I think we've done it in the right way and everything, because we really are running, we're running a game without any playbook that's ever been there before. And so you've got to be understanding of what we're trying to do. We don't want to just say, oh, well, okay, fine. Let's just open everything up from the standpoint of our lodges and campgrounds and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden we have a real problem that blows right up in everybody's face. Well, where do you think the first place that they're going to come back to? They're going to come right back to me, and they're going to say, Justice, why'd you do that? Well, Justice wants to do it right. That's all there is to it. He wants to do it in a way to try to preserve the economics and protect you first and foremost, and that's what I'm trying to do.
All right, thanks, Sean. Next, we'll go to Nick Dugan with WVVA.
Yes, hi, Governor. Nick Dugan, WVVA here. I know that coming up on Monday, we're supposed to have low-contact youth sports and other youth Little League organizations be able to start practicing. I know that more guidelines are supposed to come out. I know that that's just a couple of days away now. I'm wondering when those guidelines, as far as what low-contact youth sports means and who's going to be able to start practicing. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a combination of the SSAC rules. You got to really watch those rules as they come out and everything. Primarily, in my view, it's the little leagues or youth soccer. It's not basketball. It's not. It's the equestrian stuff. It's the horse shows rather. It's primarily, like I said, youth little league, youth soccer, and just low contact stuff. And by Friday or before, we'll have out more and more guidelines, and you'll be able to see that. Like I said, it'll be up Friday or before, and we'll just ease back into that. We'll start with practicing. We'll start with games on the 22nd, and that's provided we don't have an ugly spike jump up and everything. And if we do, we'll have to pivot. We'll have to move. We'll have to be fluid, just like we've done over and over and over. This is not etched in stone, as to exactly what we can do, because we have got to continue to watch the numbers and be light on our feet and move when we have to be able to move.
All right, thanks, Nick. Next, we'll go to Kenny Bass with WCHS.
Hi, this is Kenny Bass, Channel 8 and Fox 11 in Charleston. Governor, there were reports last night. We spoke last night about the possibility of the Republican National Convention coming to West Virginia. Quick question: with the hesitancy that we've shown not to open the state to people from outside of our borders because we've been somewhat insulated and protected here, and we haven't seen the effects from COVID-19 that many of our neighbors have. You talk about events like the Republican National Convention, or you talk about World Team Tennis, which is coming to the Greenbrier this summer, which I'm certain will attract a cosmopolitan audience from all across the country and perhaps from out of the country as people come to watch that event. Where is the balance that we're trying to find here with inviting the RNC, with bringing in World Team Tennis versus the other measures we've taken, which are designed to keep us safe and keep out-of-staters from here? And then very briefly, what are the odds that the Republican National Convention will be in West Virginia? You called it a long shot last night. What are the realistic expectations we can have?
Well, Kenny, let me go through the different aspects of your questions. But we do have protocols in place, but if they were to come, they have many very, very strict protocols. Now, first and foremost, I would say we've got to look at those protocols and be assured that we will absolutely be safe and be safe in every way in West Virginia. Secondarily, which is very enormously important, is the economic impact of bringing that convention to West Virginia would be unbelievable. And lastly, here's the brass tacks facts. I've pushed it, and put it on the radar and saying, West Virginia would be a wonderful, wonderful place for such an event and everything. It would give us a lot of recognition, and at the same time, it would have tremendous economic impact for our city, and the city that it would come to would be Charleston. But the reality is just this. It is such a long shot. It is just something that I'll continue to do to try to market West Virginia and put on the radar of our president and everything. It was just he was calling back. He was calling back on another issue and everything. We had more discussion about this, and I've got to report to West Virginia and that long shot is probably not going to become a reality. And so from the standpoint of us getting that, he informed me that probably they've already, had a process in which they looked at us and everything, but I think they're going to go somewhere else. But again, I want to try always, as best I possibly can, to bring more and more potential goodness to West Virginia. And I'll promise you that without any question whatsoever, there's no way in the world that anything will come to West Virginia that we don't have protocols in place from the people that are coming and protocols in place from our state and everything to try to protect us in every way we possibly can. In regard to the world team tennis, and I know very little about this and everything, but I think, one of the things that they're going to be able to have fans, but I think they're going to limit them to like a fifth of the stadium space and all that kind of stuff. So one per every 5 seats or whatever. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there's protocols, and there's protocols to protect us and protect those that are coming as well.
All right, thanks, Kenny. Next, we'll go to Brittany Patterson with West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Hi, Brittany Patterson with West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Thanks for taking my question. So as you know, in July, we are going to see the end of the additional federal money that folks getting unemployment have been getting. We're still facing extremely high levels of unemployment and jobs that have yet to really go back fully. Does the state have a plan for helping residents who might be experiencing hardships when that happens?
Scott, maybe are you still on? Maybe you could answer that. But I for what I know and for what I got of the question and everything, forgive me, but for what I know, we continue to wait on guidelines from the federal government. I think the original guideline was, the $600 payment was going to go through July 25th or a number like that, and I think maybe that's been extended on out. From the standpoint of our unemployment fund and everything, to just tell the honest truth, we're probably nearing, if we're not already there, the exhaustion of that and everything, and we'll be able to backfill that, and with the Fed dollars that we already know, we can do that, in regard to that, and so. But Scott, maybe you can add a whole lot more about this than I.
Yeah, I can say a few things, Governor, but you're exactly right. The trust fund is nearing in, but we've made arrangements working with the federal government to ensure the solvency of that trust fund. So that's not going to be an issue. The extra $600 that was mentioned still is set to expire the last week of July. Now, it's my understanding that what Congress is looking at right now is an opportunity to extend that either through the end of this year or maybe even to the first quarter of next year. But I can tell you, as far as training dollars go, Workforce has been awarded a substantial amount of dollars to help folks upskill or to retrain for the new marketplace, looking at remote work opportunities. And so as we transition into what the workforce is going to look like after the pandemic, there's going to be plenty of training dollars from the federal government to make sure that anybody who wants to go to school will be able to go to school. Anybody that's looking to upskill, to retrain, to fit the new workforce or the needs of the employers as we exit the pandemic, there's plenty of training dollars available through workforce for that.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Next, we'll go to Paul Mullen with WCBC Radio.
Governor, I'd like you to take us inside that call with the president, if you could. When you get on the phone with the president, is it Mr. President and Governor? Is it Jim and Donald? And can you tell the stress that he's under by the tone of his voice when you're talking?
Well, I can, and I can tell you that there's times that it's Jim and Donald. Most all the time all the time it's Jim from him. You know, I really try with all in me to always give the ultimate respect to that office and call him Mr. President. You know, there's times, you know, that I refer to him as Donald, but there's no question. I mean, you know, I've told him this before, but, you know, I was on a call with him not long ago. Maybe this will better answer your question, but I was on the call with him not long ago when he was beginning to pivot more towards reopening of America and that we had to get back to work. And I said, you know, Mr. President, I've been on a lot of calls with you and over the last little while, and I've surely been able to see, you know, on the telecalls and everything, I've been able to see the stress and the concern and the worry. But today I see you really in a mood of hope and everything for us to be able to reopen. And I see you, and my words were, today you're really jacked up, aren't you? And he laughed and he said, well, I got to work more on my poker face then, don't I? Because, you know, but they're pleasant calls. You know, they're usually not very long, you know, because we get right to the point with one another about what we're wanting to talk about. But you know, I mean, really and truly with what's going on in our nation, what's going on in the world, you know, it's tough stuff, and really what's going on right here in the state, you know, is surely smaller in lots of ways, but it's one and the same. This whole balancing act of, you know, with no playbook and you know, and you know, you're going on a lot of hope, and more than anything, a ton of prayers that you're making the right decisions for our people. And so, but he, you know, like I said, I wish to goodness that people could see his heart. He really cares. He puts on a face as being a tough guy a lot, and he is a tough guy, but, and he puts on a face to where stuff really is deflecting off of him, but those errors hurt. They hurt. Of course, they can hurt me, but they hurt him as well. I mean, they'd hurt anybody. But he, I'll promise you one thing: he loves America. He's given it everything he's got for America. He doesn't need to be there. I mean, he doesn't need that job. He's not looking for the next office. I mean, he, you know, it's not easy work, but at some point in time, you feel a tremendous amount of gratitude and honor and everything to be able to serve. You know, that's the thing that I hate to say it, but an awful lot of politicians aren't doing today. You know, they're looking for the next hot tip or their next highest office or whatever, and the serve part kind of just goes out the window. But I really believe you got a president and that's there to serve, and I promise you got a governor that's doing that.
All right, thanks, Paul. Next, we'll go to Mark Curtis with Nexstar Media.
Governor, I want to kind of follow up on that, the political part of this. We've had the three leading Democratic candidates for governor on our Sunday show. We've already interviewed your two main opponents. We're hoping to have you in soon to tape for this Sunday. But to a person, all five of them have criticized you for not spending any of the federal CARES Act money, the $1.25 billion. They believe it should be spread out to help small businesses. The money should already have been distributed to the municipalities. I realize you're waiting on paperwork, but respond to the political accusation from all five of them that you've mishandled the CARES Act funding that's been sent to West Virginia.
Well, Mark, I appreciate your question or call, and I would just say just this, it's easy for people to criticize that don't have a clue what in the world they're doing, and when it really boils right down to it, that's just it. They don't know the rules, they don't know what you're having to work with, all they want to do is just chatter and throw rocks, and at the end of the day, what do I have to gain in any way by not getting the money out, and get the money out to the cities and the counties as fast as we possibly can, because that's going to West Virginians. I mean, for crying out loud, even from a political standpoint, what in the world do I have to gain by holding the money? I mean, for crying out loud, from a political standpoint, the best thing I could possibly do is get the money out to the counties and the cities. But if they don't have a clue, why in the world should they pander? And that's the right word, just pander, and everything. And they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue is what we're trying to do.
All right, thanks, Mark. We have time for one more. We'll go to Brad McElhenney with West Virginia Metro News.
Oh, hi. Governor, you've been keeping us in suspense. What was that call about, and why did it happen in the middle of this briefing?
Well, there's parts of the call that I can't tell you what it's about because I don't have his blessing and everything to let that go. But the call is about a lot of different things. The call is about the fact that we continue to have issues across our nation from the standpoint of people that are carrying their level of protest beyond, and it becoming violent or becoming looting or issues like that. And he's enormously concerned about that and everything. My advice always to him or to anyone is we all know that every single person in this country has a right to free speech. Every single one of us has the right to protest and show our views and everything. Absolutely, if you look at Mr. George Floyd's brother, there's nobody that could say it any better. He's out pleading with the people, that we don't need violence, we don't need looting and all that. We need to come together as a people, and we need to do more and to do the right things, and I am all in there. I mean, for crying out loud, that situation of what happened to that man is despicable beyond belief. It is murder. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just plain murder. That's all there is to it. And the other police officers that stood by and just watched what was going on, that's bad. That's bad stuff. But that's not representative of us, especially the people of West Virginia, and I commend them in so many ways. I'm so proud of them for the way that they have represented their free speech and their right to protest and do those things. And all that was just wonderful and everything. And we want to continue the dialogue to be able to improve. But there's that going on, all the economics of what's going on, I mean, our president is enormously concerned about just this, and this is all there is to it. And guys, it's true. It's as true as it can be. When we walked over to start the engine of our nation back, she didn't start. She didn't crank up. That's all there is to it. And absolutely, this nation could drift into a depression and a financial meltdown, a total financial meltdown. Now, you talk about losing life, or you talk about issues, or you talk about putting neighbor against neighbor, or people starving to death. It's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom that that could be a possibility. But I tell people over and over, just fathom this, that just in one day, poof, in one day we went to 0% interest rates. In one day, poof, we went to where oil, the very thing of our foundation and everything within our economy, we went in one day to where Western oil, diesel, in West Texas, you couldn't give it away. You had to pay people to take it. Oil prices went negative, below zero in a day. Now, if you don't think for a minute that all of a sudden, if this engine doesn't start, that we can't drift into an economic meltdown, you're not thinking right. You're just plain not thinking right. And at the same time, the president right in his ear, blah, 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 has got, his medical experts that are saying you got to do this, and he's got to contend with this and that and everything. All of those things, it's hard to imagine, Brad, that the president of the United States is calling me and we're talking about this stuff nonstop. We are. And so in all of that, he's making the very best decisions that I think he could possibly make and everything. And I'm trying to absolutely, funnel and showcase West Virginia at every moment that I possibly can with him and all the people in D.C., because the more dollars that flow here, the more opportunities that we have in West Virginia, the better off West Virginia will be. And that's why I'm saying that pipeline or that connector between myself and him and everything gives us the opportunities to bring more and more and more things to West Virginia that give us employment and all the goodness and all the things that we want. We talked a little bit about the Republican National Convention, from the standpoint of, he said, he wanted to call me and let me know, that it looks like they're going to go another way. I knew it was a giant long shot and everything, but I wanted West Virginia at least to be on the radar. And so that's the thing. We talk frequently, but we just don't talk to chatter. I wanted him to always know just how welcome he is in West Virginia, and any president. We should absolutely welcome all, but maybe not Barack Obama, but nevertheless, we'll welcome any president. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Brad. Governor, I'll turn it back to you to close out.
Well, first and foremost, I want to go back to workforce just 1 second. Scott Adkins and them have processed, I think he said 250,000, or they're working 200. They've had claims from 250,000 people in 2 months. Now I want you to do the math just a second. If you quantify that and put it into an equivalency of an entire year, you've got to take that 2 months. That 2 months is 1/6 of a year. So you got to multiply that 250,000 by 6 times. And when you do that, you come to 1,500,000. That's what it is annualized at. And last year, they processed, I think, 43,000. So really and truly, these people are doing almost 40 times what we did last year on an annualized equivalency. And it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, Scott. And I know that there's people out there, and we defended, and we still want to defend all those people that are looking for their payments, and they've been more than patient, and it's just drug on and on and on and on and on. And but Scott, you all have done a great job. I couldn't thank you anymore. And from the standpoint of the National Guard jumping in there and trying to help, but Workforce West Virginia and the National Guard and all those that have been able to just jump in and try to help, you've done a good work. And so I guess the ending of the whole thing is we continue to move forward in West Virginia. I continue to ask you to wear your mask if you go out, and I continue to tell you that West Virginia, you couldn't possibly you couldn't possibly say it any differently than just this. When the President of the United States of America, the guy that's probably the most powerful human being in the whole world, you know, and absolutely without any question the most powerful in all the free world, is calling West Virginia, calling you, West Virginia. The President of the United States is calling you and everything, and that means he knows you. He knows where you live. He knows you, West Virginia, and truly in every way, we want that ability to be able to go forward to where we'll get our fair share. You see, over all the years that have gone on, and I'm not casting stones in any way, but over all the years that have gone by, we have been thrown a bone, just a tidbit, in order to secure votes, whether they be our senators or our congressmen or whatever. But we have been thrown tidbits, nothing and everything. At the end of the day, West Virginia, you need and deserve your fair share. And that's what I'm trying in every way, shape, form, and fashion to be able to get you that and everything, because it'll only make us better. We don't need just tidbits. We don't need the parsley around the plate. We need the meat and the potatoes. Thank you so much.